Hello, my name is Gustave Le Bon, and this is my paper, The Crowd, a study of the popular mind, written in 1895. I'm a psychologist. Well, that's what I'm referred to. Yet I did not learn from the prestigious universities which are biased. Uh, the following work is devoted to an account of the characteristics of crowds. The whole of the common characteristics with which heredity endows the individuals of a race constitute the genius of the race. When, however, a certain number of these individuals are gathered together in a crowd for purposes of action, observation proves that from mere fact of their being assembled, there result certain new psychological characteristics, which are added to the racial characteristics and differ from them at times to a variety of considerable degree. Organized crowds have always played an important part in the life of peoples, but this part has never been of such moment at the present as the present. The substitution of unconscious action of crowds for the conscious activity of individuals is one of the principal characteristics of the present age. I have endeavored to examine the difficult problem presented by crowds in a purely scientific manner, that is, by making an effort to proceed with method, and without being influenced by opinions, theories, and doctrines. This, I believe, is the only mode of arriving at the discovery of some few particles of truth, especially when dealing, as is the case here, with a question that is subject of impassioned controversy. A man of science bent on verifying phenomenon is not called upon to concern himself with the interest of his verifications may hurt. In a recent publication, an eminent thinker, M. Goblet de la Vela, made the remark that belonging to none of the contemporary schools, I am occasionally found in opposition of sundry of the conclusions of all of them. I hope this new work will merit a similar observation. To belong to a school is necessarily to espouse its prejudices and preconceived opinions. Still, I should explain to the reader why he will find me draw conclusions from my investigation which it might be thought at first sight they do not bear. Why, for instance, after noting the extreme mental inferiority of crowds, picked assemblies included, I yet affirm it would be dangerous to meddle with their organization, notwithstanding this inferiority. The reason is the most attentive observation of the facts of history has invariably demonstrated to me that social organisms, being every whit as complicated as those of all beings, it is in no way in our power to force them to undergo a sudden, far-reaching transformation. Nature has recourse at times to radical measures, but never after our fashion, which explains how it is that nothing is more fatal to a people than the mania of great reforms, however excellent these reforms may appear theoretically. They would only be useful were it possible to change instantaneously the genius of nations. This power, however, is only possessed by time. Men are ruled by ideas, sentiments, and customs, matters which are of the essence of ourselves. Institutions and laws are the outward manifestation of our character, the expression of its needs, being its outcome, institution and laws cannot change this character. The study of social phenomena cannot be separated from that of the people among whom they have come into existence. From the philosophic point of view, these phenomena may have an absolute value. In practice, they only have a relative value. It is necessary, in consequence, when studying a social phenomenon, to consider it successively under two very different aspects. It will then be seen that the teachings of pure reason are very often contrary to those of practical reason. There are scarcely any data, even physical, to which this distraction is not applicable. From the point of view of absolute truth, a cube or a circle are invariable geometric figures, rigorously defined by certain formulas. From the point of view of the impression they make on our eye, these geometrical figures may assume very varied shapes. By perspective, the cube may be transformed into a pyramid or a square, the circle into an ellipse or a straight line. Moreover, the consideration of these fictitious shapes is far more important than that of the real shapes, for it is they and they alone that we see and that can be reproduced by photography or in pictures. In certain cases, there is more truth in the unreal than in the real. To present objects with their exact geometrical forms would be to distort nature and render it unrecognizable. If we imagine a world whose inhabitants could only copy or photograph objects, but were unable to touch them, it would be very different for such persons to attain or to extract idea of their form. Moreover, the knowledge of this form, accessible only to a small number of learned men, would be present, but of very minor interest.
They'll just stop, give it 120 years, and they'll be there with their virtual realities and their phones and augmented realities. They'll be wearing the headsets on so they can see things, but they won't be able to smell or touch them. That's one weird thing. Yeah, you predicted that there, Gustave. Good call.
Logic would seem at first to enforce upon him. There are other motives that dictate to him a like reserve. The complexity of social facts is such that it is impossible to grasp them as the whole and to foresee the effects of their reciprocal influence. It seems, too, that behind this visible facts are hidden, at times, thousands of invisible causes. Visible social phenomena appear to be the result of an immense unconscious working that, as a rule, is beyond the reach of our analysis. Perceptible phenomena may be compared to the waves which are the expression on the surface of the ocean of deep-lying disturbances of which we know nothing. So far as the majority of acts are considered, crowds display a singular, inferior mentality, yet there are other acts in which they appear to be guided by those mysterious forces which the ancients demonetated destiny, nature, or providence, which we call the voices of the dead, and whose power is impossible to overlook. Although we ignore their essence, it would seem at times as if there were latent forces in the inner being of nations which serve to guide them. What, for existence, can be more complicated, more logical, more marvelous than a language? Yet whence can this admirably organized production have arisen except to be in the outcome of the unconscious genius of crowds. The most learned academics, the most esteemed grammarians, can do no more than note down the laws that govern language. They would be utterly incapable of creating them. Even with respect to the ideas of great men, we certain that they are exclusively the offspring of their brains. No doubt such ideas are always created by solidarity minds. But it is not the genius of crowds that has furnished the thousands of grains of dust forming the soil in which they have sprung up. Crowds, doubtless, are unconscious, but this very unconsciousness is perhaps one of the secrets of their strength. It is the natural world. Beings exclusively governed by instinct accomplish acts whose marvelous complexity astounds us. Reason is an attribute of humanity, of too recent and still too imperfect reveal to us the laws of the unconscious, and still more to take the place. The part played by the unconscious in our acts is immense, and that played by reason very small. The unconscious acts like a force still unknown. If we wish to remain within the narrow but safe limits within which science can attain knowledge, and not to wander in the domain of vague conjecture and vain hypothesis, and we must do simply to take note of such phenomena as they are accessible to us, and confine ourselves to their consideration. Every conclusion drawn from our observation is, as a rule, premature, for behind the phenomena which we see clearly, and other phenomena which we see indistinctly, and perhaps behind these later, yet which we do not see at all,